A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ahsan Naqvi. Today we are going to present the same topic of compilation of hadith, and this is video 3. In the first video we saw what how the compilation took place in the life of the Holy Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu. In hadith number 2, in video number 2, we saw that how hadith was compiled and collected after the demise of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu. And today is hadith number 3. Again and again I'm making this mistake, sorry for this. Video number 3, and in which in this video we are going to start with the, let me just go through it very fast. There is no need to repeat all this stuff. I've already explained you in the previous videos. My address, YouTube address, my blog address, then syllabus board are the same. This topic is applicable to all the boards, particularly this CAIE and Excel examination. Then all the boards it's applicable. Syllabus component is I'm only talking about CAIE. I'm not talking about the other boards. This is paper 2, question number 2. Main topic is the history and importance of the hadith, and the subtopic is the history of the compilation of hadith. This is the topic that we are going through. Now, in this video number 3, we are going to say something about how these very, very important, reliable, authentic books, Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, were compiled. What was the process by which they went through, and I won't be able to give you many details. They require a separate video for the details, which I will provide you, don't worry. But right now this is only the introduction, how Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim came into existence, with what efforts. Now the question is that when the scholars were already working to some extent about the hadith, and Imam Abu Hanifa and the other Imams, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi, Imam Ibn Hanbal, they were already working on the hadith. Then what was the need of compilation of the hadith? There are some very important reasons for which Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim, who were of the same age, 250 after Hijrah, they decided to collect hadith in an organized way. What were the reasons why they did this? And that was a tremendous work, and we appreciate these great scholars, because even today we are able to distinguish between the right hadith and the fake or the false hadith or the weak hadith. The reasons of compiling authentic books on hadith. The major reason, the basic reason, was the creation of the fake ahadith. Then why these fake ahadith were created, that is the point, a few points, 3 or 4 points, in which I will try to explain you why people fabricated wrong, false ahadith in the name of the Prophet. By the way, for your own knowledge, I would like to share it with you that Prophet Muhammad says, "Whosoever deliberately invent something in my name, fabricate something in my name, he should see his place in Jahannam, in the fire of hell." This is a major, major sin. So therefore, when you pass on any hadith, that you read on Facebook or some other source of knowledge, over there please see and check whether the hadith that you are passing on to your friends is the authentic one or it is not the authentic one. The better way, if you are not confirmed and if you feel that you don't have time, the better way is to keep quiet and not to pass it on unless it is confirmed, or ask some good alim of hadith whether the hadith is reliable or this is only a fake hadith, because I see a lot of fake stuff on the social media nowadays, and this is very, very dangerous for Islam. Due to the influence of the Prophet on Muslim community, some people started fabricating ahadith in the name of the Prophet for their own interest. If someone wanted to fulfill their own personal selfish interest for the sake of wealth or for the sake of fame or whatever could be the reason, but people did make fabricated hadiths in the name of the Prophet. God forbid us. They were so clever in their work that for a common Muslim it was not easy to recognize a fake hadith and a genuine hadith. The way they make fake and fabricated, currency notes, they are so similar that a common man cannot recognize them so very easily, and they come into their cheating. In the same way, the ahadith were fabricated in such a expert way that for a common Muslim it was not very easy to recognize it. Therefore, for this reason, there was a need that there should be a distinction between the right hadith and the wrong hadith. It was not easy to recognize a fake hadith and a genuine hadith. There was a serious need of making standards which should distinguish between the genuine hadith and the fabricated ones. So that is one reason for which the books were compiled. Hazrat Ali had to give severe punishment to a man who confessed that he alone, one man, had fabricated 4,000 ahadith in the name of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu. Just one man, and Hazrat Ali gave him, severe punishment. So that was the condition in the time of Hazrat Ali, and that was the early time. You can imagine that during the last in the next 200 years or 250 years, what major things took place, and how the fake and fabricated hadiths became kind of an industry, and that was very, very dangerous, because the Muslims needed Sunnah and Hadith, and the Hadith they are reading, they are listening, is right or wrong. So therefore there was a need of compiling books which make standards that this is the right one, acceptable one, this is not acceptable one. That was one reason. Until now the work on Hadith was not fully focused on Hadith. The focus was on fiqh, which is Islamic law. Imam Malik, Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Ibn Hanbal, Imam Shafi'i worked on fiqh. Basically, they were the scholars of fiqh, the Islamic law. They were not the scholars who were specializing only in ahadith. Of course, they were the experts, and they knew ahadith very, very well. But basically, their focus of the books was on fiqh, the Islamic law, not on hadith as such. Obviously, Islamic law needed Sunnah and Hadith, therefore they were used frequently. They means that the Hadiths were used frequently in their books, but their books were not the collections of Hadith. Basically, there was no organized, detailed, and comprehensive collection of Hadith, and there was need of such collections, and for this reason Imam Bukhari, Imam Muslim, they collected their own hadith with certain standards that those standards we are going to talk about later on. Sorry for this wrong spelling. Due to the conflict between Banu Hashim and Banu Umayyah, this conflict was not a new one. Banu Hashim was the family of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu. Banu Umayyah were also very strong people of Quraysh, and there were the conflicts between these two families for years. Even before the birth of the Prophet, the conflict was there. After the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu, obviously the Prophet belonged to Banu Hashim, so naturally Banu Hashim took the domination of because the Prophet was everything to Muslims. So Umayyads, or the Umayyah family, they accepted Islam, and they were good Muslims. But yet the value of Banu Hashim was much greater than Banu Umayyah. However, after the martyrdom of Shahadat of Hazrat Usman Radhiyallahu Ta'ala, this politics, between the Muslims that started after Usman's martyrdom. And in the time of Hazrat Ali, there were major conflicts. Battle of Siffin was the one in which so the politics went on, and after Hazrat Ali, for a shorter time, it was Hazrat Hassan Radhiyallahu Ta'ala who became the caliph in one part of the Islamic Empire, and in the other part of the Islamic Empire, because it was divided into two parts. I will talk about it later on when the history comes up. So the dynasty was divided into two parts. So after Hazrat Hassan's death, the entire Islamic Empire came under the control of Hazrat Amir Muawiyah Radhiyallahu Ta'ala, and then, so because of this politics, there were people who were supporting Umayyah, there were people who were supporting Banu Hashim, and they broke their principles. These people, the people were there, let me say the bad people were there, who fabricated a hadith in favor of either Banu Hashim, exaggerated one, or in favor of Umayyah, Banu Umayyah, the exaggerated one, of course. So that was a problem, and the fake hadiths were there. So there was a need that there should be a distinction between the right hadith and the wrong hadith. Whether the hadith is simply exaggerating one family or the other. Some people tried to take advantage and fabricated a hadith in favor of any of the parties, both Banu Hashim and Banu Umayyah. These fabricated hadiths were in the marketplace. So that was the major problem for which the Bukhari and Muslim were compiled. Work of Bukhari and Muslim, by the way, I did not mention this, but these great scholars, they started reading and becoming the student of hadith since a very early young age. When they were only 8 years of age or 10 years of age, they started, reading about Islamic education, and then they specialized and they had a special interest in hadith. And Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim, both of them were great scholars and of the same age. 250 after Hijrah, Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim, I said it, they were of the same age, and they also compiled their books almost in the same time, 250, 252, 255, 256. That was almost the same time when these two books were compiled. Worked in an organized way to distinguish between the genuine hadith and the fake hadith. They spent their lives. They were very sincere Muslims, very pious Muslims, both of them were, and they devoted themselves to see whether we should accept one hadith in one way or the other. They devised two methods which were recognized by Muslim community, and in later years developed by other Muslim scholars. These methods were, well, you see, I'm talking about these methods in a very short way. In the coming videos, inshallah ta'ala, I'll be talking about Isnad and Matan in detail, because this question is a very common one. At least in CAIE, I have seen this question again and again. I have seen this question, Isnad and Matan and the principles, but I will just introduce these two terms, Isnad and Matan, in this video. However, details I will make separate video, inshallah, that will be coming soon. So just understand these two terms, basically what is the meaning of these two terms. Number one method was Isnad. In English we may translate it chain of narrators or chain of transmitters. Details will be given in a separate video. Matan or content of the hadith, the words of the hadith, the content of the hadith, details in a separate video will be given. However, for a little introduction, let me just go through these few lines. With the help of Isnad, they collected the data of all people who narrated a hadith from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ up to Imam Bukhari or Imam Muslim. Well, when Imam Bukhari heard a hadith from someone, he asked that person, who told you about this hadith? And then that person, who told him that hadith? And who told him that hadith? These steps, around 4 or 5 people were in between. Generally 4 or 5 people were in between. 4, 5, 6 people. From Imam Bukhari up to Muhammad ﷺ to 50 years, they were covered. That from Imam Bukhari heard this hadith from this man heard the hadith from that man heard the hadith from that one. That is called the chain of narrators, chain of transmitters. That is called chain of narrators, chain of transmitters, all in simple words. Isnad is the word that we use. Sanad is the authority. Who gave you this hadith? That it seems to be very simple process, because you might be thinking that they heard the name of that person and the story is over. No, the story was not over. Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim, they worked out on the biography of each and every person who was narrating a hadith. They went into the biography and they traveled a lot in long journeys and faraway places. They only went there to see and check whether the hadith that we are receiving from a certain man is reliable or he is not reliable or she is not reliable. So that was a very big effort on on the credit of both the great ulama. So therefore that is called Isnad, Sanad. Who told you this hadith? From Imam Bukhari up to Muhammad ﷺ. So that was a chain of narrators. Then they wrote down books of this biography. These books are there available even today. So if you are a student of hadith or you are doing a course of Sheikhul Hadith in some madrasa, then you will have to remember and you will have to go through each and every person's biography. It is not an easy course at all. And the Sheikhul Hadith is a great scholar of hadith. So therefore they collected all these biographies and made sure that these people who gave the hadith to us and we are going to accept it, they were absolutely 100% reliable people. I'm not going into detail how they were reliable. That is coming in the separate video. They also saw what weaknesses were there in the narration of the hadith. The weaknesses were there. Weakness does not mean that the hadith is fake. Maybe one hadith is not meeting the high standards of Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim. But for the other muhaddithin, those hadiths were acceptable even with slight weaknesses. But weakness does not mean that they were fake hadiths. So what weaknesses were there in the narration of a hadith? They made standards of which hadith is to be accepted and which hadith is to be accepted and which hadith is to be rejected, which I explained you right now. With the help of matan, one thing was the isnad, which means that they collected the biography and they saw whether the person was reliable or not. But on the other hand, they did not put the things at rest only with the biographies and seeing that the person was reliable. And no. They also paid a lot of attention on the words of the hadith, on the words, the content of the hadith. And this content is called matan. They analyzed the content of the hadith, the grammar of the hadith, the words of the hadith, the mood of the hadith. I'm not going into detail about it right now, but they went and they analyzed matan in detail. So with these two major tools of isnad and matan, they set up rules about the content of the hadith and the presentation of the hadith. Due to these efforts, two great books on hadith were compiled, that is Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Let me also say something about Sahih Bukhari is recognized by the Muslims the most reliable book after the Holy Quran. That's the most reliable book. There is not one single fake hadith in it, not single weak hadith in it. Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, both of them were of the almost of the same level, and they are recognized by the Muslims the most reliable books after the Holy Quran. In coming years, other scholars also compiled their books. These books and scholars were, four names you should remember for your examination purpose. One was Abu Dawud, whose collection is, maybe I can make a little mistake in the names of these books. Maybe the same names are there, maybe a little different from these names, but generally they are called Sunan Abu Dawud, Sunan Nasai. Nasai was also a great scholar of hadith, Sunan Ibn Majah, and Sunan Tirmizi. Please remember these four names, they are very important. Now when we make these four ones, these four books and two books of Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, total are six books. Total are six books. They are called Saha al-Sitta. As-Saha al-Sitta. As-Saha al-Sitta. Sitta is six. Saha is Sahih, reliable one. Six best or reliable collections, and generally the Muslims, all of the Muslims, they recognize these six books as the most reliable ones, the most reliable collections, and they are acceptable to the Muslims. Thank you very much for giving me time. Please subscribe my channel. So nice of you. May Allah bless you and your families too. Assalamu alaikum.